Welcome back to the Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing. I'm Craig Hickman, Senate District 14, 11 towns in Southern Kennebec County, the Senate Chair of this committee. We are now back live streaming. We wanted to make sure that that was happening before we reconvened and began our work. There will be people who are coming into the room. Today is the first day of a new way of having our work sessions where anyone is invited to register for this work session, and then they get the link. They can show up, stay muted, stay with their cameras off unless or until one of the chairs recognizes them to speak to provide any point of clarity on any bill that we are working in real time. And so it looks as if we have a quorum of members. And with that, I am going to open the work session on LD 182, an act to expand the definition of essential worker to include retail and food service workers. That will be followed by LD 425, LD 473, LD 648, and LD 711. Mr. Langland, will you please present the bill?
So I will share my screen. Okay, are you all seeing my bill analysis?
Yes.
Okay, so LD 182 is an act to expand the definition of essential worker to include retail and food service workers by Representative Paulus. You may remember this was initially a concept draft, and at public hearing last week, the sponsor presented language which replaced the concept draft, and the amendment defines essential businesses and operations and essential worker to mean any employee employed in an essential business and operation at the time the governor declares a state of emergency. Initially, there was a lot of testimony, neither for nor against. Some of these folks actually ended up saying they were more against it than neither for nor against once they saw the text of the bill. Potential issues and technical problems. So in the testimony, one of the things that came up was that the bill doesn't allow for flexibility needed in an unplanned event, such as COVID-19. There was also testimony that definitions are problematic, particularly the definition for retail establishment, which in the bill is cross-referenced to a section that defines it as a place of business open to the general public for the sale of goods or services. A few days ago, Senator Guerin sent along an essential business operations and definitions chart, which was used in an executive order on April 3rd of last year when determining essential businesses and operations. And so I've linked to that in my bill analysis. We have not yet received a preliminary fiscal statement. That is all that I have.
Thank you, Mr. Langland. Are there any questions for Mr. Langland from the committee based upon his analysis? Let me put my screen to hand raising. I do not see any hands raised. Is there any discussion amongst committee members about LD 182? We do have the bill sponsor with us. If anyone has a question for the bill sponsor, you feel free to ask that question through the chairs. Representative Sylvester.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did want to bring Representative Paulus forward just to see if he had anything that he wished to say to the committee before we move to a vote.
Your wish is our command. Representative Paulus, Representative Sylvester has posed a question.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to just quickly say that kind of the reason with the bill is kind of a place to start a discussion on essential workers. I think that's one area where I wanted the bill to kind of start there. This language, as you know, we started as a concept draft, and language was asked for, so we figured the definition would be a place to start. So that's why, that's why we started with a definition. But I'm fine with however the committee would want to work it or feel the bill needs to be moved. I think a discussion is I just wanted to get us thinking about essential workers and discussing what moving forward with any other, now that we're going through and have been through our year of emergency, how to really look at that essential workers moving forward in the state.
Thank you, Representative. Are there any questions? Representative Sylvester?
I was going to move to discussion, but I might have been jumping the gun there.
No, I think you're fine to ask the committee if we want to discuss this bill, entertain a motion. I'm open to the committee for your guidance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to thank the sponsor for bringing this issue forward. I think it's an issue that's very important. I think that.
Okay, I'm sorry, Representative Sylvester. I just saw someone's hands up. Continue, please.
Oh, that's okay. So I just wanted to thank the sponsor for bringing this forward. I think it's a really key discussion. I think that, you know, the workers, the hundreds of workers that I talked to, some of whom were happy to be essential workers, some of whom wondered why they were essential workers, some of whom wondered why they weren't essential workers. I think that it is a key discussion. And when we spoke earlier, that's why I encouraged you to explore the issue. I don't know what the answer is to this problem. I think you definitely came at it in a creative way to try to nail it down to the definition. For me, I don't feel like, I feel like it raises as many questions as it answers. And so I'm always, when that's where I'm landing, I always don't want to put that into statute, right? To have 20 bills that we need to fix it later. And so I really do appreciate you starting this conversation and getting this committee thinking about the definitions of workers. And but I just, at this time, I probably won't be able to support it today.
Senator Garin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do agree that it is very important to structure around this. And I think, although perhaps there will have to be modifications in years to come, the governor's office has put in a lot of time and thought to the list of essential workers that the administration has. And if we want to add some of the language from this bill to ensure the restaurant workers and the retail workers are included in there, but it does appear, from my reading at least, and perhaps our analyst could weigh in on that they would be included if we passed the governor's list. And I think that would give some stability in the future, so decisions wouldn't have to be made completely on the fly on a day-to-day basis.
Senator Garin, you froze a little bit. Were you finished with your remark?
I am finished. Okay. I don't know. Did you hear it all, do you think?
I heard you say, the last thing I heard you say before you froze on my screen anyway, was you wondered if the analyst could weigh in on whether or not using the list provided by the governor from April the 3rd in her emergency declaration on essential and non-essential businesses, are you suggesting that you wanted to put that in statute?
Yes, that would be replace the bill, but I wanted the analysts to look and see if the bill would be inclusive of the restaurant workers and retail workers that this bill was aimed at.
Got it. So Mr. Langland, do you have an answer for Senator Garin's question?
I don't have an answer off the top of my head. I can certainly look into that quickly and get back to you. I want to make sure that I give you a correct answer, not an off-the-fly answer. So,
thank you, Mr. Langland. Any other discussion on this at this time? It sounds like Representative Cuddy.
Thank you, Senator. Yeah, I just wanted to weigh in because I do think there are a lot of things that we will be learning that we have learned coming through this pandemic and this particular crisis that we're going to need to apply moving forward. But one of the things that we have seen that was of great help was the ability to be flexible. I myself, as a construction worker, was labeled as an essential worker, and I had a pass from my job site that I had to keep with me when I drove to the job site and back, because otherwise I could be pulled over and I could get in trouble for being out. But that to enshrine this in statute is very difficult, because what we may find is that in the next crisis, it's going to be a really bad idea for me as a construction worker to be kept on the job, because we don't know what the next crisis will be. It might be a pandemic. It might be something weather related. We simply don't know. And our solutions to the problems that we have found are going to need to be flexible. So while I think Representative Paulus has brought forth a great idea, and I like the thought process and I like the discussion that started, I think enshrining it in statute at this time is not the right idea. So I will not be supporting the bill.
Thank you, Representative Cuddy. Representative Sylvester.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was a little, well, I understood everything that Senator Guerin said. At the end there, I just lost whether or not she was hoping that we would continue to work on this bill and was hoping to bring forward an amendment, or if this was for some future bill that she was hoping to entertain.
Would you like me to answer that question, Mr. Chair?
Senator Guerin, please do clarify. Thank you.
I would like it to be bill this year, so it would have to work with Steve to make sure the retail workers and restaurant workers were included on the governor's list. I read that they are, but I'd like his legal opinion on it. So in that case, it may be something that perhaps we would need to entertain a tabling motion if that was the pleasure of the chair.
Thank you, Senator, for your clarity. Any other discussion from the committee? Representative Warren.
I just would like to say that I support that. I do think that it is relevant. I'm interested to table and try to figure this out a bit. I think it is relevant or important to do so. Just wanted to support the senator.
Representative Gear.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I think that for me, I think it's the challenge is that as far as I can tell, and hopefully our analysts can correct me if I'm wrong, the bill does not address one of the key employee categories that needs to be addressed, I think, in this definition of essential, which is teachers and school staff. And I think that without that, that's one of the key areas we really need to address in a more comprehensive way. So I would be looking to see that happen and would not be able to support the bill until then.
Thank you, Representative. Any other discussion?
I'd like to have a quick caucus with my caucus, please.
You may. I believe that, Ms. Thompson, if I'm correct, that can happen in this format with the breakout room.
I'm going to open up the breakout rooms right now. I apologize. I'm on the phone with Representative Prescott at the same time, trying to get him in. So
thank you.
Hopefully he'll be joining you, Senator Guerin.
The committee is just at ease momentarily while we prepare to do a side caucus. We'll be back as soon as we can. Thank you.
Alyssa, if I press create 2 breakout rooms, will that send everybody to their breakout rooms?
I have to sign them manually. Otherwise it'll
okay. I thought so.
Like random members of the public in with you guys. And
that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure. All right. Thank you.
I haven't got an invitation. Oh, never mind. Yes, I have.
Do you guys want like Brooke in with you guys? I know you caucus with her sometimes. And I think they're already gone.
I believe the Republican caucus is back and ready to go. I seem to be the only person on here. Is that correct? Really special.
I'm here too.
I'm here 3.
I sent a,
Okay.
I forwarded the invitation to Dwayne. He's having trouble getting on, I guess, so.
Yeah, he kept showing up in the waiting room and I kept letting him in and then it just said loading. So I don't know if maybe it's a combo between like poor Wi-Fi
Right.
and so many people in the meeting or what, but
Yeah,
him and I touched base, so.
he's got poor Wi-Fi, that's for sure.
Mhm.
He's working on Zoom.
I'm not totally sure why, but maybe if you shared your link with him, Representative Bradstreet, but.
Yeah, I forwarded it to him, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
I
think he's
tried.
trying to rejoin again because it says you're trying.
Yeah. So what's up, Buttercup? Mhm. Yeah. You know what?
Alyssa, could you call me on my cell phone, please?
Yep, I'll call you in just a sec.
Thank you.
Committee members are trickling back in from their caucuses. We are in the process of working LD 182. I'll just give another minute or so. I do know that Representative Sylvester is reaching out to the bill sponsor, and I'll let that happen before we pick up our work again. Thank you all for your patience. We still intend to be finished by 5, but we will work until we're done. Senator Garin back yet?
Yes, I am.
There you are. We're just waiting for the House Chair to return, and then we will continue forward. There he is. So welcome back. We are in consideration of LD 182. I will seek any comments from the committee. Senator Garin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Upon further reflection on the comments made by my colleagues in your caucus and our discussion in our breakout room, I think I have changed my mind and really don't feel like it's going to be a bill that is workable. There's just too many variables that we don't know in the future, so I'll be voting on not to pass.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Sylvester.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, we hear a lot about in this caucus about unintended consequences. And unfortunately, for Senator Garin, one of the unintended consequences of caucusing was that my caucus has decided that we want to try to figure out a way to move forward with this bill. And so, and as this, you know, and I think it's important to state that Representative Paulus came forward with this bill trying to, as a concept draft, trying to find a way to help these groups of workers. And because one of the ways we do that is by defining things, that's where he ended up. But I think that there is probably a larger conversation about the groups of workers that have kept our economy going during, you know, this horrific pandemic. And so, so our caucus wishes to consider the bill a little bit longer. And so I would make a motion to table.
The motion is out of order. Representative Cuddy.
I was going to second before it was moved out of order, so there's nothing to second.
I will entertain a motion from the committee. I think the Representative Sylvester's motion was out of order because he argued for a tabling motion in advance of making it. Representative Cuddy.
I would make a motion to table.
It's been moved to table. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Representative Cuddy, seconded by Representative Warren. The tabling motion is non-debatable. If everyone turns their camera on, we can do a show of hands for a tabling motion. All in favor of the motion to table, please raise your hand so that I and the committee clerk and the analyst can see your hands. The motion is to table. All in favor, keep your hands raised, please. If you are voting in favor of the motion to table, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I see 9 members who wish to table. All opposed to the motion? 1, 2 members opposed to the motion to table. The motion to table prevails. With that, we will open LD 425, a resolve directing the Department of Labor to establish a state unemployment program for self-employed workers and independent contractors, sponsored by Senator Chip Curry of Waldo. Mr. Langland, please present the bill.
Okay. So LD 425 directs the Department of Labor to create an unemployment compensation system for self-employed workers and independent contractors. Some potential issues or technical problems for consideration by the committee are the Department of Labor testified that unemployment insurance program is federal-state partnership with overarching federal laws. If Maine conforms to federal law, then federal administrative grants are given to the state to administer the program operations, which I believe they said was about $18 million. And in addition to this, employers also get what's known as a FUTA credit, a Federal Unemployment Tax Act credit, which reduces the annual rate from 6% to 0.6% paid on the first $7,000 in wages paid to each of their employees. Loss of this credit would increase federal unemployment taxes for Maine employers by $213 million annually. As it stands now, federal law prohibits self-employed individuals or independent contractors from receiving benefits under the regular state unemployment system. The only exception is an incorporated business where the owner is legally an employee of the business and unemployment taxes are paid on the wages received from the corporation. The bill requires the Department of Labor to use federal startup funds, which it cannot do because of the conformity issues I just described. They testified that if Maine uses federal money for this program, it jeopardizes federal funding to administer unemployment program as well as other grants. Based on current federal law, to accomplish what this resolve seeks to do, it would require an entire separate unemployment program, trust fund, and funding mechanism, both to cover the cost of the benefits paid out as well as the administrative costs associated with delivering these services. The committee did have a couple of information requests, mostly to the Department of Labor. And I understand the department is here. Laura Boyette is here, and her and I can try to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you, Mr. Langland. Does anyone from the committee have any questions of Mr. Langland? Representative Rader.
Not of Mr. Langland. Just would like to call for a caucus once we are done with the questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Representative Cuddy.
Thank you. I do have a question. Probably both, actually probably more from Ms. Boyette than Mr. Langland.
And with that, Ms. Boyette, will you please turn on your mic? Thank you. Representative Cuddy, go ahead with your question.
Thank you very much. Ms. Boyette, thank you very much for being here for the work session. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So as I read the bill and with my limited understanding of unemployment, like prior to the pandemic, I felt like I probably understood maybe 8 to 9% of unemployment. Now that the pandemic, the unemployment piece of the pandemic has sort of been caught up, I think I probably understand about 2 to 3% of unemployment. But with that limited understanding of it, it seems to me like the establishment of a program such as this one would have to actually come from the federal government, and then we could adopt it, as opposed to starting it here and having it be in effect under the umbrella of unemployment. Am I right in that? Am I in the ballpark?
No, you're correct in that, sir. There's a lot of problems with trying to set it up without the federal laws permitting it, because you'd have to do it completely separate from the regular state unemployment program, which means that you can't take advantage of any of the economies of scale from shared staffing, shared computer systems, and the mechanisms that are already in place to administer the regular unemployment program. They would all have to be recreated for this program and funded in a different manner. It could not be coming from our primary funding source for delivering unemployment services is our federal administrative grant, which we couldn't use any of.
Okay, thank you. Pretty comprehensive.
Did you have a question, Representative Sylvester? I saw your hand earlier.
As usual, Mr. Chair, Ms. Boyette has answered my question before I asked it. So thank you, Ms. Boyette.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mr. Langland or Ms. Boyette from the committee? Representative Gear.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think this might be a question for Ms. Boyette. Did we get any data on the trends in workers based on the different definitions of contract or employee? Do we have any numbers and trends on that?
I did not have that question down, but I can tell you that when we looked at, if you look at the 2019 data of employed individuals, there was about 677,000 of those. That covers self-employed as well as regular employed. And in terms of covered employment, about 607,000 of those were in covered employment, being they would be employees of a business. So we were looking at about 70,000. There's a lot of, I'm not sure, confusion around particularly the independent contractor group, because they're not registered anywhere. So it's really difficult to put an exact figure as to how many there are. And we tried looking at a couple of different ways of that based on the Census American Community Survey in 2019. It was a one-year estimate. It looked like there was about 28,400 self-employed in their own incorporated businesses, and as incorporated business workers, and 57,600 self-employed in their own but not incorporated businesses. Direct selling association stated there was about 78,000. So somewhere in the 70 to 80, perhaps as high as 100,000 self-employed in Maine. It's just really difficult to tell without a concrete place to go to for a definitive answer. Mm-hmm.
That's part of the challenge we face, right?
Absolutely.
This amorphous. And then do we have any trend information as to whether, because I think, again, the big concern that's in the back of my mind is the increasing prevalence of gig kind of work and people that are, cobbling together without a full-time employment, a job, but actually, and so do we have any trend information?
No, I'm afraid not.
Okay. Thank you.
Representative Cuddy.
Thank you, Senator Hickman. Ms. Boyette, when I first saw the title of the bill and even reading through the bill, I was excited at the idea, because I think what Senator Curry has touched on is a really important concept here, that we hit this point at which unemployment became sort of the first line of defense. Unemployment insurance did, for people who were losing their job, or who weren't losing their job, but who could no longer perform their independent contractor services, or small businesses who maybe didn't have an employee or two, but who they themselves weren't going to qualify for unemployment, but they were able to get it because of these programs that the federal government set up.
Right.
And the intent of the bill is to figure out a way that those folks don't get into that position where, and also we as a society don't get into a position where we're borrowing money at the federal level to pay out benefits when we could have had some system in place the whole time that would have protected these folks. And this is admittedly not a fair question because it's a huge question, but is there anything happening that you're aware of at the federal level? Are there any ideas at the state level of something that we actually can do?
I'm not aware of any active bills in Congress right now considering this. There have been discussions in different groupings and national groupings around that. I think I even testified that we don't disagree with that. We actually agree with that concept. And I think the pandemic highlighted the plight of our independent businesses and businesses in general during a really deep emergency like we saw this past year, even better than during the recession. During the recession, the focus was still around covered employees versus businesses. But with what we experienced this past year, I think that plight has become even more evident than it was before. Congress has been very focused in other areas right now, and this hasn't really been pushed. We've certainly, can encourage our main delegation through the department and groups through the National Association of State Workforce Agencies around considering this, but I think it's going to take a really collective effort across the country to push for this type of reform, because the pandemic has highlighted some of the shortcomings of this program in terms of not keeping pace with today's workforce and how work is performed, everywhere.
Thank you for all of that, Ms. Boyette. The pandemic actually exposed so many things.
It did.
And here we are addressing them even at the state level. Are there any other questions for Ms. Boyette or Mr. Langland about the posture of this bill? Seeing none, Representative Rader, are you still interested in a caucus? Ms. Thompson, if you could take the time, please, at your leisure to allow us our breakout room.
They should still be open, so you guys just have to click the little button down at the bottom where it says breakout rooms, the 4 squares.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And for everyone listening, we will be back momentarily. We'll be at ease for a few minutes while we caucus.
Melissa, it's Miramont.
I'm reassigning you and a couple
you.
other people. Yeah, no problem.
I changed computers. I thought that might have been why.
No worries. You should be able to go now.
I see it. Thanks. again.
Perfect.
Melissa, I don't have it for whatever reason. It's showing me the big screen and asking me to close all rooms, but it doesn't give me the option to rejoin.
Where it says room 2, do you have a little blue button that says join?
I do not.
You don't? Okay.
Oh, never mind. There it goes.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, it just looks a little different when you're a co-host.
Yep, it did. It was a number that turned into join. Thank you. Appreciate it.
No problem.
We are back from our caucuses on LD 425. The chair would entertain discussion or motion. Representative Sylvester.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this is an incredibly important bill in the subject matter that brings up. I think that no one who has a constituent who was helped by the federal programs does not believe that that was valuable. I think that certainly that was the right move, and I believe that the federal government needs to understand, and I think hopefully does understand, that the system that was created in the 30s no longer is compatible with the economy that we have in 2021. That what workforce no longer happens in a factory, and so I'm hoping that those programs will be adjusted to take. So that's, sole proprietors and independent contractors and all these different groups will be considered in the unemployment program and make the employment program stronger for having them in it. But I think, and I think that there's groups of workers, many of them who, are maybe were not represented in some of the definitions. We could include a lot of people. And so I won't be supporting this bill today, but I think this concept is very important and needs to be worked on. And there may be a bill later that would be adaptable to this idea. And so that's where I am today.
Thank you, Representative Sylvester. Anyone else from the committee wish to make a comment or make a motion? Representative Bradstreet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also share a lot of the concerns that Representative from Portland, Representative Sylvester, I just mentioned. But given how problematic it is going forward at this point in time, I would enter a motion of ought not to pass.
Representative Bradstreet, ought not to pass. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
It's been seconded by Representative Drinkwater. Is there any discussion of the motion?
That's the way it is.
Someone has their computer
I don't.
on. Thank you. The motion on LD 425 is ought not to pass, made by Representative Bradstreet, seconded by Representative Drinkwater. If there is no other discussion on the motion, I will ask Ms. Thompson to call the roll.
Senator Hickman.
Yay.
Hickman, yay. Senator Guerin.
Nay.
Guerin, nay. Senator Miramont.
Yay.
Miramont, yay. Representative Sylvester.
On the motion of ought not to pass, I vote yay.
Sylvester, yay. Representative Bradstreet.
Yes.
Bradstreet, yes. Representative Cuddy.
Yes.
Cuddy, yes. Representative Drinkwater.
Yes.
Drinkwater, yes. Representative Gear.
Yes.
Gear, yes. Representative Morris.
Yes.
Morris, yes. Representative Pebworth. Pebworth is absent. Representative Prescott.
Yes.
Prescott, yes. Representative Rader.
Yes.
Rader, yes. And Representative Warren.
Yes.
Warren, yes. That is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 in favor of the ought not to pass motion, 1 against, and 1 absent.
The motion ought not to pass prevails 11 to 1. We will close the work session on LD 425.
Really quickly, if I could interrupt, Senator Guerin, do you have a minority report that you'd like to submit?
Senator Guerin I know she is preoccupied at the moment.
Yes, she is temporarily preoccupied, Mr. Chair.
So, Mr. Langland, how best do we get her minority report if she's not here to give it?
I think there's something in the rules about having to describe on microphone, at least, what the report is, but Maybe she'll be available momentarily. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm reaching out to her as we speak. Can we just hold 1 second?
Mr. Chair, just make sure she understood the motion, please.
That is what I am doing. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to move on from this. We can reconsider this vote if we have to after the next work session or two. So we will move on now and we will open the work session on LD 473, an act to create the Maine Rental Assistance and Voucher Guarantee Program presented by Representative Victoria Morales of South Portland. Mr. Lee, present the bill.
Thank you very much. Oh, sorry.
As you know,
someone has something open and I can't hear Senator Guerin, who was back to tell us something, and then we'll go from there. Go ahead, Senator.
I wanted to vote yes on the ought not to pass.
So what we're going to do, since we closed that and we reopened another work session, we'll just do a reconsideration vote before the day's end. And
Okay.
Okay?
Give me that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Langland.
Sure. So LD 473 is an act to create the Maine Assistance and Voucher Guarantee Program by Representative Morales. The bill requires the Maine State Housing Authority to establish and administer the Maine Rental Assistance and Voucher Guarantee Program. The program must include a rental assistance component to assist individuals with the cost of rent and a rental voucher guarantee component to encourage landlords to work with the program and other rental assistance programs in the state. The bill also creates the Maine Rental Assistance and Voucher Guarantee Program Fund under the Maine Housing Authority to carry out the program. The bill includes a general fund appropriation of $8.5 million to the fund in fiscal year 2021-22 and fiscal year 2022-2023. Representative Morales testified on her bill that it's based on Project Home, which she described in her testimony. We also heard testimony from Representative Osher and from Eric Jorgensen of Maine Housing in support, as well as Sharon Vale with the Maine Real Estate Managers Association. Against the bill, we had written testimony from Michael Carone from the Consumer Data Industry Association. He had concerns particularly with the inability of landlords to use or to access credit reports and rental history in potential applicants. And we had Daniel Bernier testifying neither for nor against. The sponsor did on Friday send out an amendment, which I have summarized here, but she's also here, so I'm not sure if you want me to go through her amendment, or perhaps she's best suited to do so.
Yes, Mr. Langland, if you just want to finish what you can finish, and we will let the bill sponsor present her amendment.
Sure. So on the original bill, Maine Housing testified that it can be problematic to use a fixed source of funding for a long-term need. I think as this committee is well aware, as rents increase, rental vouchers have less purchasing power, or the number of participants will need to be reduced. So originally it's financed using general fund appropriation, and this means that there's no guarantee that a future legislature will choose to continue the funding. Maine Housing testified it's unsettling to think of people relying on a program that has multi-year implications, yet is funded with one-time money. Sharon Vale of Maine Real Estate Managers Association recommended 2 amendments to the original bill. The first was to allow landlords to access credit and background checks, but require landlords to waive certain selection criteria should they choose to accept the voucher. And her other proposal was, instead of requiring landlords to give up their right to evict if tenants' portion of rent is not paid, to require landlords to work with navigators and tenants before eviction, but not waiving the eviction right completely. The committee requested a couple of pieces of information from Maine Housing, a flow chart of vouchers, is where they come from and to what agencies do they go to. as well as what vouchers Maine has for state and federal. And there was also a request for what's the approximate average increase of rent from year to year. And I also included just generally some information from Pine Tree Legal Assistance given to Rights of Maine renters, as well as a link to rental property in the Maine statutes. We did have a preliminary fiscal impact statement, which was $8.5 million for the next 2 fiscal years, but since the amendment sort of changed that, I didn't include it. And I did attach the sponsor's amendment, which she had me send out on Friday. So that is all that I have. And as I said, Representative Morales is here and she can certainly speak to her proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Langland. Welcome, Representative Morales, to the Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing. If you would please introduce yourself and walk us through your proposed amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Honorable members of the committee, Representative Sylvester. My name is Victoria Morales, and I represent House District 33 in South Portland. And thank you, Steve. That was a great rendition of the hearing and a summary of the amendment. So this bill seeks to kind of the overall arching goal is to reduce that 25,000 approximately household wait list of Section 8 vouchers that currently exist in the state of Maine, which is up 27% from pre-COVID times, by creating a Maine state housing voucher program. And it has 4 components. It has a rental assistance component to provide 1,000 housing vouchers a year so that we chip away at that waiting list. It has housing navigators to access appropriately sized, priced, and located housing and support the landlord-tenant relationship. It has landlord guarantees and landlord assistance with renovation and remediation necessary as a result of inspections for any of the housing voucher programs that exist in the state of Maine. So whether it's Section 8, whether it's through LBHS, which has a number of vouchers based on health, as well as general assistance. And then the 4th piece is that Maine Housing would provide a report. This is a part of the amendment to this committee so that you are well aware of the waiting list and where we are at with chipping away at that. So as you all recall, and I'll get to these amendments, the community showed up for over 4 hours of testimony in support of this bill, highlighting the need for vouchers, the need to remove restrictions and barriers for applying to housing, and the need to support landlords so that they can continue to be a part of the solution to solving the housing crisis. As an aside, I did talk extensively about the program that I run. It's called Project Home. Last year, we served 70 households, upwards of 140 adults and children, and only one was unsuccessful. And so we only used our $2,000 guarantee for one household. So if we take that number and that statistic and apply it to the program that we're seeking, that I'm seeking to propose with this bill, that would be about 14 households that would potentially be unsuccessful. So when I'm thinking about that voucher guarantee program, I just wanted to put that number in your head. At the hearing, we heard from landlords, and they said that $2,000 may not be enough to guarantee these units. And so we heard that, and we increased that amount to $5,000. Now, if you apply $5,000 to those 14 households a year that potentially are unsuccessful, that's about $70,000 to go towards that guarantee. At the hearing, we also heard from some landlords that were concerned about removing barriers to applying for housing. So we amended that portion of the bill as well. And so what the amendment does is that the voucher, the rental assistance, is available to anyone, and the landlord doesn't have to remove restrictions to applying. However, in order to be eligible for the guarantee, the $5,000 guarantee and the housing navigation, the landlord would have to remove the restrictions. So that's how we addressed that concern. And the final piece of it is that, as you all know, there is some American Rescue Plan money coming in from the federal government. We're not sure exactly what that can go towards. So we put a paragraph in there to allow flexibility such that that's not going to replace the state funding. However, we want to be able to leverage that in the event it is available. And so we wanted to craft some language in this particular program that would allow Maine State Housing to access that funding in place of using state funding if it's available.
Thank you, Representative, for your submission of your amendment. Are there any questions from the committee for the representative? Representative Prescott.
Well, thank you. When we heard this bill the first time, I was under the impression that this was going to be more of a hand up for a while till they get on their feet program. I don't see any timeline where they ever have to get out. Because we did discuss that it would be about 1/3 of their income that they would pay in. And without a timeline, whereas in say, I mean, this program, they could just be there forever. And I also didn't see anything that states below any income. Is that in there? Did I just miss that part of who qualifies for this?
To your first point, Representative Prescott, you're right. It doesn't include a timeline, and that would be subject to discussion of this committee. And to the second question, the income eligibility would be something that Maine Housing would determine. And how I imagine that is it would be largely based on how the federal government runs their programs.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the committee? Representative Bradstreet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative, for being here again. I'm looking at the part of the amendment, and it, correct me if I'm wrong here, it says the landlord must waive tenant late fees for any month in which rental assistance is paid by the program and not evict a program participant for non-payment of rent during any month for which rental assistance is paid. Now, is the program designed to pay 100% of the rent or just a portion or percentage of the rent?
Program, as I imagine Maine Housing would develop, the eligibility requirements would be very similar to a Section 8 voucher program. And so the that looks like 30% of your income.
If I
and
may,
I'll just point out, oh, I'm sorry, Senator.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Representative.
I was just going to point out that that section, thank you. And I'll just point out that that section of the amendment takes it out of the piece around every landlord can accept the voucher program and accept tenants and doesn't have to comply with C, which is the amendment portion you're talking about, Representative Bradstreet. How
we have a glitch right now on Representative Morales. I can't hear her. I don't know if anyone else could hear her. Representative Morales, are you? Yeah, she's turning.
I'm sorry.
Now it's okay. You turned off your screen.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead with your answer, but we missed probably the last 35 seconds of it or so.
Okay. Can you hear me now, guys?
Yes. Yeah, I think there's just a delay. What I would like to do is ask Mr. Eric Jorgensen if he will show himself to us and also answer the questions so far that I've heard Representative Morales say would be better up to you to determine eligibility. Mr. Jorgensen, if you could please introduce yourself to the committee.
Hello, I'm Eric Jorgensen. I work for Maine Housing. I'm the Director of Government Relations there, and I'm happy to be here. We are just still, we got the amendment like you did relatively recently, so we're trying to understand how it all fits together. And it's, and I think the one thing that we're concerned about mostly is, as we read it, it looked like this amendment actually stripped out the state funding for vouchers and left the rest and replaced that with the American Rescue Act money. And we were very concerned about that just because we don't want to create other rules for a federal program that currently exists, and we can't repurpose those funds. So we can't use the American Rescue Act money for anything other than what it's intended for. We expect there'll be more money coming in for vouchers, so maybe those would be something that could be used for this, or this could be used for that. But I think that's one of our biggest concerns is Section 1 as it's amended. Now, if Section 1 is amended and includes the original money from the general fund in addition, that's a different story. But we saw that as being as going away, with the exception of the Part 2 and Part 3 money. So that's, I guess, that's my biggest concern about it. We certainly were originally, we liked the program initially because it did have sort of a nice tidiness about it. I mean, it was a self-contained program that helped meet a real important need. And, it would be, we thought that really if there was substantial state money coming in, with the caveats that we suggested, I think there's something we could work with to help make a dent against the unmet need for housing vouchers out there. But it was a complete and contained package. And I think the worry I have now is that if it is in fact relying totally on federal money, we can't go writing new rules for federal money that we already have. And maybe I'm misinterpreting it. So I certainly don't want to try to question Representative Morales' intentions here because, but we've been playing catch up a little bit trying to understand this.
Not a problem, Mr. Jorgensen. Just so that folks who are listening and the committee is aware, today is an informational session work on this bill to make sure that at least we have all of our questions answered, and it's probably not going to end up in a definitive vote one way or the other because this is a comprehensive amendment and it is relatively new to all of us. With that, I'm going to go to Representative Geer. She's had her hand up for a minute.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I do want to thank Representative Morales for bringing this bill forward. It is I believe it is fundamentally our responsibility as legislators to address this really, really thorny problem that is manifest across the state. So I think we've got to figure out how to do something and how to move forward. I know the change that was made in the amendment from the $2,000 insurance fee fund for the landlords is up to $5,000. I think as was well described during the public hearing, Representative Morales, that getting landlords on board is one of the key challenges for this. What led you to land on $5,000, and is that something that you feel that landlords will come on board for?
Yes, and thank you for the question, and my apologies for my internet. So in working with landlords, there are some thorny situations, I'll use that word, it's a good word, where it's not, there's a need to get folks out as well. And as we know, it's costly. The eviction process is not easy. Just even working with someone as they try to find someplace else is not easy. Largely what we see is that it's the damages that occur are under $2,000. For example, in the one situation that we had last year, we didn't pay out the full $2,000. However, landlords have said, just knowing that there's more in the bank there ready for us to support us really makes us feel like you are with us and you will support us, and we want to be a part of that program. So we have heard that message, and that's why we use the $5,000.
Great, thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Representative Drinkwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And question for Mr. Jorgensen. I know it's been a little over a month since we had this hearing, but we asked for a flow chart and what do we have for vouchers? I think that's a very important question that's germane to this bill is how many programs do we have? And are we getting any closer to an answer?
Yes, I have something I'll send you today on that. I did some more work on it over the weekend and I had it close to right, but it wasn't entirely right. But I have a good summary that I can provide you this afternoon, as well as something on fair market rate establishment of those rates and how those were done. So,
and if I may have a follow-up, Mr. Chair.
You may proceed.
Thank you. These voucher programs, let's talk about this bill that's in front of us. When it comes to distributing it around the state, what are your guidelines? Because somebody from rural Maine is more worried about vouchers getting into my area. And I'm sure every legislator feels the same way about their area. So how do we distribute this?
Well, you sign up for the centralized voucher or the centralized Section 8 waiting list, and that will take you. That's geographically, it has geographical elements to it. If you're in an area with a housing authority, you would have that would allow you to be put into that under that housing authority's jurisdiction. Otherwise, if it were an area without one, you'd come to Maine Housing, and you go on the wait list that way. So it is tied to your geography of where you're applying from primarily. And then there are other ways of getting, as I will show you on the chart that I'm going to be sending you, there are different things that can move you up to the front of the list if you're actively homeless or if you are elderly or disabled in other ways, or military people sometimes, or military veterans can in certain programs can move themselves up. But it's generally a geographical thing that will get you on based on where you live.
Thank you, sir.
Representative Sylvester.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Jorgensen, if you could send that, make sure that got around to all of us, that would be fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll send it to the clerk.
Thank you very much. My question, though, is for Representative Morales. When I was reading the amendment, I guess apparently I didn't read it close enough, because I had thought that it was additionally adding funds from the federal government, from the American Fund Act. But are you replacing the state money with that, as Mr. Jorgensen said? Did I misread that?
No, that's not the intent. And sorry about not drafting it as clearly as possible, but the intent, and Mr. Jorgensen and I talked about it earlier today, is that we want to be able to leverage federal funds if we can, right? I mean, none of us want to let any federal funds go unused in the state if we can use them. And so not exactly knowing all the rules of how we're going to be using those federal funding. And I know Maine Housing is working really hard, as well as a lot of community providers, to understand what that's going to be. We just want to have something in there that we can access those if we need to first, before we go towards our state funding. That was the intent behind that paragraph.
So when there is if there's a motion made, you would want that to be supplemental, so that the state had the ability to use those funds if possible, or to supplement and or replace state funding. Would that be correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And it's entirely possible that between now and when we take the final vote on this, that all of those things can be addressed in the meantime, perhaps. Are there any other questions from the committee for either the bill sponsor or Mr. Jorgensen? The chair would entertain a motion if there's going to be no further discussion for today on LD 473. Representative Sylvester.
I would make a motion to table.
Representative Sylvester has made a motion to table. Is there a second? Representative Gear is seconding the motion. It's non-debatable. If you could please turn on your cameras and we will take the vote by a show of hands. All those in favor of tabling LD 473, please indicate and leave your hands raised. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I see 11 people present and voting. The motion to table prevails. We will schedule this for a future date. Thank you, Representative Morales, for being here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I will now we will do the reconsideration on LD 425 at the very end. I will now open the work session on LD 648, an act to improve the lives of Maine workers by supporting apprenticeships that lead to good paying jobs, sponsored by Senator Joseph Rafferty of York. Mr. Langland, please present the bill analysis.
1 second, let me pull it up. Okay. So, okay. So are you seeing my bill analysis?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure. Okay, so this bill requires the Maine apprenticeship program to apply at least 75% of program funding toward apprenticeship programs in which the apprentices earn at least 1.5 times the rate of the minimum wage upon completion of the apprenticeship agreement. Senator Rafferty, the sponsor of this bill, did propose an amendment at the public hearing. He proposed amending the bill to say that 75% of apprenticeships must start at 1.25 times the Maine minimum wage and end at 1.5 times the Maine minimum wage, beginning after 30 weeks. The Department of Labor, in its testimony, recommended defining what's intended as program funds. Department proposes this to mean direct costs of training apprentices, such as tuition or related classroom instruction. The committee made several requests for information from the department, and we received that information just this morning, which I did forward you as soon as I received it. I can pull that up and go through that if you'd like, or I understand that Kimberly Moore from the department is here if you have specific questions.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Langland. Are there any questions from the committee for the department, so long as we are stopping at this section? I do not see, well, let's make sure. If your hand is raised, speak out. My computer just froze. I can't find the participant list. There we go. I do not see any questions about that item at this time. So please continue.
Yep. The only other thing, and I sent this out to the committee a while ago, is the 2019 Maine Apprenticeship Annual Report contained some of the information that was asked at the public hearing, specifically the demographic data that was found on page 4. We have not yet received a preliminary fiscal note, and that is all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Langley. Representative Cuddy.
Thank you. I do have some questions, I think, from Ms. Moore.
Great. Ms. Moore from the department, will you please turn on your mic and your camera? There you are, and introduce yourself to the public, please. Thank you.
Sure. Kim Moore. I'm the director for the Bureau of Employment Services at the Maine Department of Labor.
Thank you. Representative Cuddy has a question for you.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Ms. Moore, for being here and making yourself available during the work session. It is a huge help to have the folks know what's going on here. So my concern with, my sole concern with this bill is that we're talking about allocating a large chunk of the money from apprenticeships to only apprenticeships that pay 1.25, at least 1.25 of the minimum wage, 1.25 times the minimum wage at the beginning of the apprenticeship, assuming that we adopt the amendment, and then at least 1.5 times the minimum wage by the end of the apprenticeship, which I love that as an idea. We should be supporting apprenticeships that are high road apprenticeships, but the functional aspect of making that change, are we going to be taking money away from apprenticeships that are that more commonly support people who are women, people of color, and I don't know how to get at that in terms of data. Do you have any recommendations around that? Do you have first off, have I made myself clear? Do you think you understand what I'm asking?
Absolutely, yes. Thank you, Representative Cuddy. I can try to answer that for you. And I think one of the answers to that is, again, yes, absolutely, we support high wage apprenticeships. That's the goal for everyone. Yes, this could have unintended consequences, particularly with the amendment of the apprenticeship having to start at 1.25% of minimum wage. And I can talk a little bit about that in a minute. But we do support this bill because so long as this is limited to the Maine General Fund and the apprenticeship program funds that are attached to that, we do feel that many of the federal apprenticeship grants that have the opportunities that have been presented recently, including one that's on the table right now, are specifically trying to address quality, trying to address individuals who may not often have opportunities to enter apprentices or apprenticeships, and also exploring some of those non-traditional apprenticeship opportunities. So long as we can continue to look at things like pre-apprenticeship, youth apprenticeship, apprenticeship for people who might be incarcerated, which that has other standards around it. We think we'll still be in good shape with this being in place. There, with the start at the 1.25% of the minimum wage, it does. We did a quick analysis just this morning. It would eliminate the ability for that 75% to be applied to. We still have the 25%, but it would not allow us to use the 75% for things like privately employed electricians, pipe fitters, machinists, plumbers, auto technicians, funeral practitioners. So some of the ones that we're really excited about and kind of are traditional. However, we think that we can still accommodate that so long as the federal apprenticeship grants continue. Hope that started to answer your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you. And actually, I'm sorry, can I have a follow-up, Senator?
You may.
Thank you. So, but it sounds also like that although it may move some of that money toward the higher, the 1.25 and over, you'd still have the 25% with which you could actually work with some of these other groups, which it doesn't sound like. I'm trying to get a sense of the size of the group that wouldn't qualify possibly for the higher end, but it sounds, I mean, it sounds pretty reasonable.
It could be. Thank you, Representative, for the question. It could be reasonable. The good news about all those occupations that I just listed is that they all end at the 1.5% above minimum wage ending requirement. So it's that 1.25% that's a little bit more concerning. That would exclude them with addition.
And I'm sorry, one more follow-up. I apologize because this just came up in that answer.
Yep.
So you listed private electricians in there. There are electrical apprentices starting out at below, I mean, that's 1531. So there are people who are starting out in an electrical apprenticeship program who are making closer to minimum wage?
I wouldn't say closer to minimum wage. I would say below the $15 amount that you just named.
Okay.
Yep.
Representative Sylvester.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to Mr. Cuddy for now that I don't have to use one of my questions to ask that question. I'm trying to get a sense of what, besides the trades, what other kinds of apprenticeships are out there that are starting below 1531, and you know, just what kind of industries are we talking about? What sort of professions?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Representative, for your question. This is a new application of the 1.25, so I don't have a ton of information. I can swing it around a little bit too.
You could answer currently. So right now, just one, you know, without the 1.25, what kind of industries are under $15 at you know, when they start the program, and they're going to end up at 1.5, but.
Yeah, so that would be the electricians, pipe fitters, machinists, plumbers, auto tech, funeral practitioners. I believe medical assistants are also on that list. Assistant teachers, funeral practitioners, PR specialists. Kind of runs the gamut. Not across the board. But those are the ones that we do have current apprenticeships in those fields that do start at below that 1.25 of the minimum wage.
May I have a follow-up, Mr. Chair?
You may.
So what in the other specialty groups then, when you were talking about, you know, folks who were recently incarcerated, student groups, and those are, what sort of industries are we talking about there? Are we talking about the same list of industries, or are there, it seems like folks are talking about some apprenticeships that are, I mean, this is the group I knew, what you listed, right? But it sounded like there were lots of other groups that were trying to get in, or those are the ones I'm interested in, right? What are those?
So are we.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So healthcare is a great opportunity for apprenticeship, maybe not seen as a traditional apprenticeship pathway. So we do have CNA apprentices. We do have medical assistant apprentices. I think we're in the process of developing LPN. So healthcare is one of the sectors. You wouldn't necessarily think of machine operators or welders you probably think of as well. But really the push for the federal government is to certainly not move away from what you would typically think of as a trades related apprenticeship, but to kind of expand the definition to other occupations that require that benefit from the structure that apprenticeship gives. It's a great retention strategy, and a lot of industries are starting to recognize that. So you heard me say assistant teacher. So education is leaning in toward apprenticeships. There are a lot of industries that are leaning into those.
Okay, thank you. I think that helps. Thank you so much.
Representative Prescott.
Well, thank you. Hi. What's the difference in the education between an apprenticeship and coming in as, say, an electrician's helper?
Absolutely.
I'll assume they're both, you're going to get educated in the field.
Yes, and thank you so much for the question, number one. So yes, apprenticeship is all about being trained on the job and then adding those formal education on top of it. So to answer your question, kind of, an individual would likely start as an electrician helper, so cleaning up after the work site, whatever. I'm not an electrician.
Maybe that's fine.
Yes, absolutely. But the training on the job would eventually get them to that journeyman status so that they are a licensed. You can see why the wage would be very different from start to finish.
Well, Chair, may I follow up?
You may follow up.
Oh, well, thank you. And that's the part where I'm kind of losing on this. I mean, it falls upon a person, they sign on, because in our day, that's what you did. You went, you got a job, you worked right next to somebody who was already a journeyman, and then eventually they sign off on you saying, you know so much and you can go take the test. So I'm not seeing why we need to give them more money to do the same job that if they should have the initiative to go do in the first place. If they wanted to be an electrician or, a CNA, then they'd be heading that way. So why do we have to give people an incentive of 1.5 times the rate of pay of the person that's going to be right next to them that didn't make the program, but is still doing the same work?
Gotcha. I think I understand. Let me see.
Well, I'm old school, so. Yeah.
No, it's all right. If that's my feedback, I apologize. I'm probably going to have to call Joan in to explain this better for me, Joan Dolan, our director for apprenticeships. But the one point that I will make is that apprenticeship is not meant to allow any individual with equal qualifications to get a greater rate of pay. So we look at, oh gosh, I'm going to use the wrong term. It's not prevailing wage, but we look at the average wage of what everyone else who is at that journeyman status inside that organization. So the goal is to get them up to that rate of pay, not necessarily start them out at that rate of pay.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah, and we're not paying their wages. We're assisting with the planning process that's required, the educational elements, in order to get them to that stage, that journeyman status.
All right, thank you.
Representative Gear.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm trying to wrap my head around this as well. And I think the thing that I'm looking for is some kind of a chart that would show all of the different jobs that you described earlier on, Ms. Moore, and then which ones are in that would fall into the bucket of having apprenticeship wages that start at the 1.25 and which ones don't. So you can basically see that out really clearly, because I'm struggling with that. And then I think the other piece of it is, for me, as you look forward, the more attractive, potentially more lucrative careers, can you also put them on that same kind of a chart? So you can say, here's where they would fall in terms of the wage. Does that make sense?
I think so, yeah. And I think there is some distinction because again, we don't, we more set the end wage than we do the start wage. because the starting wage, of course, has to be comparable with the rest of the workforce who might be in that kind of similar training role. So that does vary from employer to employer. It's more of the end wage, which is that 1.5%. That feels a lot, very comfortable. That's why that end wage feels a little bit more comfortable, because it is supposed to be that kind of journeyman wage.
Great. And just a quick follow on there, because the question then is in my mind, is it even important in this bill to have the 1.25, or is that a really necessary thing when the goal is to get them in there and working? And then if you're leaving at the point where you're at that 1.5, that is really what the fundamental goal of this bill would be. What your recommendation would be on that? Is it better to not have it in there at all in terms of that lower limit, or to have it, 1.1 or something like that? So you wouldn't be, creating that dynamic that you're talking about.
I would defer to the committee on that. Like I said, so long as we have other flexible funding, because again, the federal government is going to also tell us, we really, really want you to have apprenticeship occupations in XYZ occupation, and that occupation may not start off at that 1.25 threshold, and we're still going to want to do it. Again, so long as we have flexibility within the federal funding, I'm not as concerned about this. It's just a point of clarification. If it's okay, I didn't answer one of the questions from earlier, and I apologize for that. I said I would, and it was regarding apprenticeship for people who are currently incarcerated, which is something that we have delved into. The reason that I say there are restrictions around the starting wage for that is because that, I believe, is federally mandated. They're only allowed to earn a certain apprenticeship wage. So that would not ever be able to be supported if that 1.25 start were implemented, only under that 75%.
Great, thank you.
Yes, thank you for the information. The quarters are beginning to drop. Are there any other questions from the committee for anyone in front of us today? Any more discussion points? I will entertain a motion if we are ready to make one. If the committee thinks we need more time to get the information that has been requested today, as behind as we are in our report outs, we certainly don't want to rush anything, and we can table this until we get more information. So I'm asking the committee to guide where we go next. We have one more work session, a reconsideration, and I do want to finish by 5, if we can. Representative Sylvester.
I was going to suggest maybe taking a 3-minute caucus for an idea, but I see that Representative Cuddy has his hand up.
Then you defer to Representative Cuddy.
Yes.
Representative Cuddy.
Yeah, I was going to suggest I'm prepared to make a motion. This is not me making a motion, this is part of my discussion, but I'm prepared to make a motion of ought to pass as amended. But if Representative Geer had asked for some information, and if it's her desire to get that prior to casting a vote, then I'm also okay with tabling. And furthermore, I'm also okay with taking a 3-minute caucus to see just what House Chair Sylvester said. I'm a pretty easygoing guy is the point I'm trying to make.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Geer, I will put you on the spot.
I would like to go with what's behind the 3-minute caucus door. So I'll take that.
With that in mind, there are no objections, and if there were, we have to do this because it's been requested. We will take a 3-minute caucus. 3-minute caucus. The Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing will be at ease for 3 minutes. Everyone knows how to go to their breakout rooms if they need to. Click that button down there. Look at that, 3:55. And I'm hoping that everyone is back and ready to continue work on LD 648. And I will recognize Representative Sylvester.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to make a motion and speak to my motion.
What is your motion, sir?
My motion is ought to pass as amended with the sponsor's amendment. And
the motion is ought to pass as amended by Representative Sylvester. Is there a second? Seconded by Representative Rader. Representative Sylvester.
Thank you. So I think the main issue for our caucus is the fact of the disparity of women and people of color and other minorities within the apprenticeship program. And so, well, I believe that this amendment is good because workers should be able to, have an apprenticeship or not, have a wage that's a livable wage. What I am going to put forward is that the committee send a letter to the DOL asking them to confer with the two permanent commissions, the Permanent Commission on the Status of Women and the Permanent Commission on Race, and Tribal Matters, in order to try to figure out what list of employers and what list of professions should be using apprenticeships in order to attract a more diverse workforce and to make sure that Mainers of all ilks are receiving a living wage and moving towards a profession. So my amendment ought to pass as amended, but at least the chairs will be sending that letter. Thank you.
It's been moved and seconded, ought to pass as amended with the amendment from the bill sponsor, in addition to writing a letter directing the department to work with the Permanent Commission on Women and the Permanent Commission on Racial, Indigenous, and Maine Tribal Populations. Is there any discussion on the motion from the committee? Seeing none, the committee clerk will call the roll.
Senator Hickman.
Yay.
Hickman, yay. Senator Guerin.
Nay.
Guerin, nay. Senator Miramont.
Yay.
Miramont, yay. Representative Sylvester.
Yay.
Sylvester, yay. Representative Bradstreet.
No.
Bradstreet, no. Representative Cuddy.
Yes.
Cuddy, yes. Representative Drinkwater.
Nay.
Drinkwater, nay. Representative Gear.
Yes.
Gear, yes. Representative Morris.
No.
Morris, no. Representative Pebworth.
Yes.
Pebworth, yes. Representative Prescott.
No.
Prescott, no. Representative Rader.
Yes.
Rader, yes. And Representative Warren.
Yes.
Yes. That is 8-5.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. 8 members voting in favor of the motion and 5 against the motion. The motion prevails. I will close the work session on LD 648. What is the minority report?
Ought not to pass.
Ought not to pass, Mr. Langland. Ought to pass as amended. And we will confer about the letter in pretty short order. With that, I will open the work session on our final bill of the day, LD 711, an act to allow certain police officers to return to participation in the Maine Public Employees Retirement System. And we have, where are you? There you are. Colleen McCarthy-Reed from Oakland will be doing the bill analysis for LD 711. Good to see you today. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. So I'm going to pull up my screen and share the analysis. I was able to distribute this to the committee. LD 711, as Senator Hickman said, addresses the ability of certain police officers to return to participation in the Maine Public Employees Retirement System. Under current law, a member of a participating local district retirement program on the date on which an employer offers an alternative retirement program may make a one-time irrevocable election to remain under that program or to join the alternative retirement plan offered by the employer. LD 711, as originally drafted, proposes to allow police officers to make a one-time election to rejoin the participating local district retirement program under certain conditions. Senator Baldacci, the sponsor of LD 711, presented an amendment at the public hearing to replace the bill and accomplish the intent. And I attached that at the end of the bill analysis. The sponsor worked with Maine PERS to make sure that the amendment was correctly drafted, both to ensure consistency with federal law and make changes in the bill that would permit any employee member covered by a plan with an employee contribution rate that's not lower than the employee contribution rate for the applicable plan under the PLD retirement program to rejoin the PLD retirement program as long as the person's membership would otherwise comply with federal internal revenue code rules as applicable to governmental qualified defined benefit plans. So the issue that's trying to be addressed here is to make sure both that it accomplishes the intent, but also maintains consistency with those IRS rules so that the program will continue to qualify. I did provide for you a link to the written testimony. I would just note that you did not receive any testimony in opposition to LD 711. Maine PERS testified neither for nor against. As I mentioned, the original bill proposed to apply only to police officers, but the proposed amendment would broaden that up to provide the opportunity to any employee member covered under a plan with an employee contribution rate that's not lower than the employee contribution rate for the plan that they're in, and then they would be if they can move to the rejoin the PLD retirement program if they have that employee contribution rate that is the same equal to or greater than the contribution rate that they have now. And again, it would have to again comply. There's reference in the language of the amendment that it would have to otherwise comply with the Internal Revenue Code rules. In response to some of the questions and the testimony that was provided at the public hearing, I did work with Maine PERS to provide some additional information for you in answer to some of those questions. Maine PERS does believe that the amendment language would permit affected City of Bangor employees, including both police officers and firefighters, that the option to rejoin Maine PERS. The amendment would permit others who are in this situation where they may have declined membership in Maine PERS and join an alternative retirement plan to change their election as long as they're covered by a Social Security replacement plan. That again, the most important thing to remember is it has to have an employee contribution rate equal or greater than the applicable Maine PERS employee contribution rate. And if those situations are in place, then they would have the ability to take advantage of this election. In terms of trying to figure out how many people this might affect, Maine PERS is aware that in addition to the City of Bangor and the City of Westbrook, there are 4 other local districts that have such plans that might be eligible under this proposal. They are aware of 1,076 employees of those districts who did decline Maine PERS at the time that an alternative retirement program was offered. There may be others that have not been reported to Maine PERS, and it's also likely that some who did decline membership at that time no longer work for the applicable participating local district. However, Maine PERS doesn't know the employee contribution rates for the plans other than Bangor. So again, as I mentioned, eligibility is going to be contingent on that employee contribution rate not being lower than the employee contribution rate for the plan under the PLD retirement program. There is going to be a larger population of employees of local districts who offer Social Security who have elected not to join Maine PERS, and the amendment, neither the bill as originally drafted or the amendment would apply to them. One of the second questions that the committee had asked was how an employee's retirement benefits would be affected if they do make an election to rejoin Maine PERS. And Maine PERS took a look at this and looked at using the City of Bangor employees as an example to help illustrate this. And they provided the following information here, just to briefly summarize it. The current, well, they don't know all the current details of the plan that's offered to the Bangor police officers and the one firefighter who are interested in pursuing a potential change, they do understand that it is a defined contribution plan that has a normal retirement age of 55. Employees may prefer a defined benefit plan, which is what Maine PERS offers, over a defined contribution plan, because it does provide greater certainty that benefits will not run out. The current Maine PERS plan offered to police officers and firefighters would have a retirement option after 25 years of service, which may be preferred over a plan with a normal retirement age of 55. So for the individuals, using an individual hypothetical here, a Bangor police officer who's 50 years old and was hired by the city of Bangor 22 years ago, there would be a significant cost, as I think the committee is aware of, to buy back those years of service into the program. And the estimate for someone in this situation would be approximately $485,000. But once they buy back that service, that officer could retire as soon as reaching 25 years of service, which would be at age 53. And their benefit under Maine PERS, using the current calculations, if they, assuming they had an average final compensation of $84,000, after 25 years of service, their annual Maine PERS benefit would be $42,000 for the rest of their life, plus any cost of living adjustments. If they stayed in the existing defined contribution plan, the officer would not be able to draw a retirement benefit until age 55. And again, they may outlive the account balance because it would be their ability to draw down those funds would be based on the balance in the account at the time of their retirement. Whereas Maine PERS provides annual defined benefit based on the formula that we've described. And then the last thing, just to remind you, which I mentioned, is the cost, the actuarial cost to a member to rejoin Maine PERS under this proposal would be borne by the individual employee. So Maine PERS would not be responsible for paying the actuarial costs. Pension contributions for those members who do rejoin the plan will be paid by the employer and the employee on a prospective basis. And again, these would be the individual participating local districts would be the employer in this situation. And I'm happy to stop there. We don't yet have the preliminary fiscal note from the Office of Fiscal and Program Review. I would also just note too that the amendment language is here and attached, and that both Michael Colleran and I believe Kathy Moran from Maine PERS are here as well in your work session and can answer any additional questions that you might have.
Thank you, Ms. McCarthy-Reed, for your excellent analysis. I certainly have been educated. Representative Cuddy has a question. Is that not correct, sir? Representative Cuddy?
No, I do. I was just slow on the draw to get myself unmuted. Thank you very much, Ms. McCarthy-Reed, for your analysis. It was great. And I don't know if this is a question for you or for Ms. Moran, but at the end of your analysis, you say that there has not yet been determined a preliminary fiscal impact. And my understanding of the way the bill is drafted and what it seeks to do is that the financial part of it goes on the officer. Whoever wants to buy back in, they have to buy back in at that, in the example, it was $485,000. So where would a fiscal impact on the state come from?
There could be, with a preliminary fiscal impact statement, there are some factors that might impact, they just have to go through and look at it. There could be an impact that raises questions about a mandate, for instance, on municipalities. So the Office of Fiscal and Program Review will review the amended proposal, certainly if the committee moves forward with that, and make a determination about any potential fiscal impact. But I think you're absolutely correct that there would not be any financial impact in terms of the state's general fund. When we often talk about retirement bills or bills that affect Maine PERS and benefits as it relates to state employees, it brings into question sort of the unfunded actuarial liability that has to be paid up front. That would not be something that would be involved in this bill.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions for the analyst or anyone from Maine PERS who is here just in case? Any questions of the bill sponsor who is here just in case? Representative Bradstreet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, it's a question for anybody. It's not really maybe germane to the conversation, but I'm just wondering if the current funds people have put away in retirement could be rolled over into a Maine PERS account without penalty, so that they don't have to take this directly out of their pockets.
My understanding is that would be an option available to these individuals. They could use the money in the defined contribution plan and have that opportunity to use those funds to pay their or buy back their service credit.
Okay, good. Thank you.
That would be in the bill as amended, or was that also available in the original bill? I'm just curious about that for my own edification.
Yeah, that would have been the case as Senator Baldacci originally proposed the language that was specific to just police officers, and then the amended language also would provide that opportunity potentially to more qualifying employees, but also would still permit the service credit to be purchased, and it would have to be done by the individual employee.
Yes, thank you. Because I had asked the question about what is the benefit of doing this at all, and you certainly answered that question in your analysis. So that makes it even more of a benefit. Representative Cuddy.
I would like to make a motion of ought to pass as amended with the sponsored amendment included.
And I'd second that.
And it's been seconded by Representative Drinkwater. Moved ought to pass as amended with the amendment that has been reviewed by the committee analyst, seconded by Representative Drinkwater. Is there any discussion of the motion? Are you ready for the question? Ms. Thompson, please call it. Ms. Thompson.
Are you ready for me? Your audio's cutting out on my end.
Yeah, I can see that happening. There's a lot of disturbance. Yes, we are ready for you to call the roll. The motion is ought to pass.
Hold on, I have to vote, Tom. Tom, I have to vote.
Ought to pass as amended, and it was moved by Representative Cuddy, and it was seconded by Representative Drinkwater.
Okay.
We are.
Senator Hickman.
Yay.
Hickman, yay. Senator Guerin.
Yes.
Guerin, yes. Senator Miramont.
Yay.
Miramont, yay. Representative Sylvester.
Yay.
Sylvester, yay. Representative Bradstreet.
Yes.
Bradstreet, yes. Representative Cuddy.
Yes.
Cuddy, yes. Representative Drinkwater.
Yay.
Drinkwater, yay. Representative Gear.
Yes.
Gear, yes. Representative Morris.
Yes.
Morris, yes. Representative Pebworth.
Yes.
Pebworth, yes. Representative Prescott.
Yes.
Prescott, yes. Representative Rader.
Yes.
Rader, yes. And Representative Warren.
Yes.
Warren, yes. That is unanimously ought to pass as amended.
Committee has voted ought to pass as amended with a unanimous vote. I will close the work session on LG 7.
Mr. Chairman, can I just say thank you to all the members of the committee and to the chairs. I really appreciate your time and consideration, and it's much appreciated by many of the public safety workers. So thank you. I just want to thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, Senator. Before anyone leaves in the committee, we do have one reconsideration vote to take. We are still in possession of LD 425. Is that correct, Ms. Thompson?
Yes, that's correct.
So someone who voted on the prevailing side, Representative Cuddy.
I would make a motion that we reconsider our previous action on LD 425.
Been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded by Senator Miramont. We will take a show of hands vote. All those in favor of voting to reconsider, please raise your hands and leave them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 13, unanimous, present and voting. I entertain a motion on LD 425. Representative Cuddy.
I can't remember if it was not to pass or not to pass as amended when we did it before.
Not to pass.
Oh, no, there you go. Right, exactly. I would make a motion about not to pass, neither amended nor anything. Yes.
Moved by Representative Cuddy, ought not to pass. Is there a second? It's been seconded by Senator Miramont. Is the committee ready for the question? The committee clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Hickman.
Yay.
Hickman, yay. Senator Guerin.
Yay, and thank you for your indulgence.
Guerin, yay. Senator Miramont.
Yay.
Miramont, yay. Representative Sylvester.
Yay.
Sylvester, yay. Representative Bradstreet.
Yes.
Bradstreet, yes. Representative Cuddy.
Yes.
Cuddy, yes. Representative Drinkwater.
Yay.
Drinkwater, yay. Representative Gear.
Yes.
Gear, yes. Representative Morris.
Yes.
Morris, yes. Representative Pebworth.
Yes.
Pebworth, yes. Representative Prescott.
Yes.
Prescott, yes. Representative Rader.
Yes.
Rader, yes. And Representative Warren. I think you must have been muted.
Yes.
Warren, yes. That is unanimously ought not to pass.
The ought not to pass motion prevails with a unanimous vote of the committee. Let it be noted that we finished our work today in unanimity. So on Wednesday, we have 4 public hearings. They could go on for a while. They are controversial issues. I expect everyone to be on their very best behavior.
Dude, you just wrote. I think I'm gonna have internet problems.
That we need from our on labor and housing stands adjourned until Wednesday at 10 o'clock.